Hey everyone, welcome to 2 Car Pros. My name is Ryan and today I'm going to show you how to replace the power steering pump for a 2005 Ford F-150 with a 5.4 liter V8. Now this was a part of my how to build that engine. I did an entire series on replacing that engine, rebuilding that engine. So some of the shots the engine is out of the truck, and then some of the shots the engine's in the truck. But I promise you, I've done a bunch of these on a bunch of different F-150s and Expeditions. You can definitely do this inside of the truck. It's just, for filming purposes, it seemed like it made sense to do it while I was rebuilding the entire engine, but I promise everything I did is capable of being done inside of the truck as well. So with all that out of the way, let's jump in. So the next thing I'm going to do is a pretty easy maintenance item. I'm going to take the serpentine belt off. So just a 1/2 inch drive ratchet and push that down, and that will relieve tension, and you can get it off one of the smooth pulleys, and then the alternator. You can just release it. And then we can just kind of fish the serpentine belt off there. It's not super complicated. So now we're going to focus on the power steering system. And what I'm going to do, rather than disconnect the power line or the pressure line rather, from the power steering unit, all I'm going to do is undo the pressure line from the steering rack and then unbolt the pressure line from the cross member and just take the power steering pressure line with me when I take the engine out. That really seems like the easiest route. And how you do that, there's a bolt on a flange on the other side of that tube you're looking at, and it's a 10mm. I have a universal here. Hope that's going to help me out. Might take a little bit of... So once I get that extension on there, I can go ahead and loosen it. There we go. Bolt is out. Push down there and get it. It's a little cumbersome to grab, but not too bad. So just keep wiggling it back and forth until the line comes off of there. Check it out. Exactly what I wanted to have happen. Nice. So now we can undo this 8mm bolt that holds the pressure line to the frame. Check that out. It's going to come with us. So now we can undo our reservoir hose that feeds it back from the cooler. Once this is disconnected, the power steering system is essentially independent of the truck and can just come out with the engine when we pull that. And there we go. My power steering system is now independent of the truck. So the next thing we can focus on is removing our power steering reservoir and bracket. Just going to get this hose off of our pump. Alternatively, you could just slice it off. So my hose is pretty much ruined. I'm just going to slice the end off here so I can get it off. Just peel it off this fitting, essentially. Now with the tension removed, we should be able to just kind of pull it off of there. There we go. That's better. So the next thing I'm going to do is remove our power steering pump. There are 3 10mm bolts, and you will need a deep well for the bottom one. And hold on to these bolts. They're a little special, and they pretty much only hold the power steering pump to the head. So let's remove those. There we go. So it might be stuck on these dowels, so just kind of wiggle it off like that. Next, we can grab a 15mm deep well and take off this bracket that actually holds the power steering line to the engine. Set that aside. And then, with that free, we should be able to remove our power steering pump from our engine. So now let's talk about our power steering system, and what we're going to worry about right now is the pressure line, the new pump, and the pressure switch. So this pressure switch is basically there to up the engine RPM if you're trying to turn while at idle, so it'll help the pump move the fluid better, essentially. This is our old unit. I've already removed the pulley off of there. The reason I didn't show you how to do that is because I've already shown how to do that in a lot of other videos, and I think it's kind of repetitive, and you need a puller to do it. But the new ones, often, almost all of them actually, except for the Ford Motorcraft product, already have a new pulley installed. You don't even need a pulley to put it on and off, because this design, you don't need to do that. It's kind of cool. But this is the replacement unit. I got this from Ford, so it's a little bit more work on my end, but I am prepared to do that. So here's the new unit. So here is our new rebuilt unit from Ford. This has their warranty and their guarantee and a, number scratched in there so they can tell who did the rebuilding and everything. But it was from Ford OEM, so it doesn't come with the pulley. I'm going to have to put that on myself, which won't be a big deal. The other thing I would absolutely replace while you are here is the pressure line. The return line, not such a big deal, but this is the pressure line that goes from the pump to the rack, and these do wear out, and they are under a good amount of pressure, so it's a good idea to just replace them while you're here. If you're going to reuse your old one, just blow it out with some compressed air and carburetor spray to make sure there's no unwanteds in there that might potentially ruin your new pump. And what we need to do is remove this little blue plug and put our pressure switch in there. I've already lubricated the O-ring on there with some WD-40. And this doesn't have to be like Omega tight, you know, just gonna do a 14mm wrench. You can't get a flare nut wrench on there, it's too small. And just snug it up like that, perfectly good. Now we can worry about putting our pulley on. So I'm actually just going to install the power steering pump onto the engine like I normally would on like an LS or a big block or something like that. You don't have to do it that way if you have like a really good way of holding the power steering pump, but I really don't. I couldn't get the angle quite right on the vise or anything, and I don't want to harm it. And on the bolts, it has 3 that hold it in. So there's 2 normal looking ones on the top, and then this one with the stud kind of sticking out the top. That one goes on the bottom right, if you're looking straight at it. So with those bolts started, they're 10mm headed. You can just start bringing those down. Don't go all the way all at once. And I could not find a torque spec for these. If I had to guess, it's probably something like 20, 22 pounds or something. I don't know, 1 arm tight's fine. And you are just bolting into aluminum, so, you know, take that under advisement. Just like that. Awesome. So now what I'm going to do, even before I put the pulley on, is I'm going to remove the plastic plug for the pressure line. Set that aside. Grab our pressure line, and I've already put some WD-40 on the Teflon washer. If yours doesn't have a Teflon washer on it, go ahead and get one. And if you're reusing your old pressure line, go ahead and get a new Teflon washer and put that on, because this Teflon washer is really integral to the system working. It's really important that that Teflon washer is intact. So that is an 18mm size nut, and I'm not tightening it with my open end wrench. All I'm doing with this 18mm is bringing it down to touch. I'm not actually going to tighten with it. That's what my flare nut wrench is for. And truthfully, you could do this in the truck, but I think it's just a smidge easier here on the stand. And we can grab our flare nut wrench. It might be a little bit of a challenge to get it on there. So the way we can do it is orientate the line away from us, and then the flare nut wrench should be able to kind of fit over the square, and then we should be able to tighten it down. And don't worry about the line actually being like tight. This is always going to be able to twist and move, so don't worry too much about that. What you do need to worry about is over tightening this. Don't go crazy on it. Just, you know, snug. Like that is perfectly good. There's really no way to get like a torque wrench or a torque setting on that or anything. Just trust your instincts on that one. So this is the way it should be routed. I kind of had it flip the other way in another take. I'm not sure if that one's going to make it into the shot or not, but I want to mention that it kind of goes like this and around the adapter for the oil filter. And then you just kind of don't bend it too much, but you bend it a little bit. So you just want this bracket on this stud right here, and this is what the routing should look like, and now we can move on. So to install our pulley, and a lot of power steering pumps that aren't the Ford OEM actually already have the pulley installed and you don't need to do with this, but mine's not. So I have my snap-on set. No, you don't need the snap-on one. This is like a $400 set. I do this for a living, so it's worth it to me to get the expensive tool. I even just bought it, as you can see. You can just rent these from AutoZone for not a lot of money. So what we need to do is take this adapter, I believe. That will go in the end of our snout. And then we need to make our tool function by putting this on there and lubing up these threads. There you go. Got some nice grease on there. And then I can actually spin the tool, this portion of the tool on there. And then we're going to take this bit of our tool and put it into these threads right here, making sure that's nice and slinked down, and then we have our installer, so we can go ahead and try to put our pulley on. So a little tip I have for you is our pulley I've left out in the sun for a few hours. It's pretty warm, it's probably about 100 degrees. You could go even hotter if you wanted to. I used to have a little toaster oven just for that reason. And we can just kind of start it on the shaft here. It's not going to go on, obviously, and we need our tool. And we can back the installer off, this bit actually off, so we can put the tool itself into the power steering pump. So I was wrong earlier. I grabbed a little bit thicker installer tool. This one is the 3/8 by 16 adapter. So this one's the small one that should be able to interface with the power steering pump. And we want to hold that as best we can, so that way we can get the tool fully inserted into the shank on the power steering pump, making sure that our pulley is nice and perpendicular to that. Our threads are nice and lubricated with some grease. And then what I'm going to do is I have this nice ratcheting wrench that's a 1 inch. You put that on the tool side, and then 1/2 inch on this side. And then what you do is you hold the black part of the tool while you twist the silver part of the tool. And what that's going to do is literally force this onto the shaft. It's pressing this on. And this is a pressed fit. It is pretty tough. It's going to take you a little while. But then it'll eventually get to the point where it won't want to turn anymore. And then you know you're done. It'll just go and go and go, and then it'll just stop suddenly. And there's another way to verify that, and I'll show you exactly what that is. That's pretty good. All right, that seems nice and installed. Let's go ahead and verify that. Sometimes this happens where the tool will get kind of stuck in there. You can just jiggle it and it should come out like that. And that is basically what you're looking for. So the way you can verify that it's fully installed, on this one it's not quite that way. The snout doesn't actually come to the end of the beveled part, but the snout will be at the very end of where the bevel is dropping in. See that? Right at the end of my fingernail? That's how you know it is properly installed all the way. There's even a second way to verify that. We can take a look at the actual pulleys themselves, because these pulleys all have to be in line with each other. If they're out even just a little bit, the pulley's going to walk the belt off itself. But you can see that it is directly lined up with each other, as all of the grooves line up perfectly. You can even grab your serpentine belt and double verify that by putting it on like this. Is the belt completely parallel at the front of the block? And it is, so we know that our pulley is fully installed. So now we can replace our serpentine belt, and here is the part number for that. And there's a link down below in the description for it. Now I've already done this video once as like an official how-to on this exact truck actually, and you can go find that video. This is going to be a little easier to follow along because, well, there's nothing in the way. But if you're looking for a video that shows you how to do it with everything in the way, the link is down below in the description. So the key for this truck, and it's kind of funny, is you want to just take like a loop with the serpentine grooves on the inside and just stuff it right here underneath, or excuse me, underneath this idler but above the tensioner, and then loop it around the AC compressor. That kind of throws me for a loop every single time I do a belt on one of these trucks, and I always found that to be helpful. Then it comes up like this, goes around the snout of our alternator, then it comes down. I'm actually going to remove my breaker bar here. Then it comes down off of the tensioner, goes down and around the damper, and then it comes up off the damper. This is a nice belt. And then the smooth side goes on the back of the water pump, like that. Then this belt groove goes like this on the grooved pulley, like that. It's okay if things fall off, you can always put them back. So I can route that. And what I've also found kind of makes it easier is if you have the smooth side pulley kind of off, and then you can do the grooved ones because they're a little trickier to get. Like this. So just rudimentarily on. And what I'm going to do is grab my breaker bar, my 1/2" drive breaker bar, and put it in the tensioner and go down with it. And that's going to give me enough slack to get the belt on. And you might be asking me why I'm using a breaker bar for a tensioner. It's because this tensioner is brand spanking new and it's really tough. If you have an older one, you probably don't need to use such a robust implement. So just go around, make sure everything is nice and in its home. All the pulleys are nice and on, no grooves are outside of any pulley. That looks really good. And go ahead and relieve the tension and check it out. Our serpentine belt is installed and looks really nice. Because I have this unique opportunity with the radiator out of the way, we can just look straight at the engine and what it looks like. So the routing, let's just start the alternator, comes down, goes down underneath this side of the tensioner, comes down around the AC compressor, around the tensioner pulley, down around the damper, around this way, smooth part goes on the water pump, comes back around, ribbed part goes on this ribbed pulley, continues that way the power steering pump on the rib side, smooth back of the belt comes on this smooth pulley, comes up, and we again finish out our alternator. So that's what your finished product should look like. So I wasn't able to get this on camera, but I wanted to point out that I do have the lines hooked back up, the low pressure return line and the high pressure send line, and I showed how to remove those earlier, so just do the opposite of what we did earlier and your lines will be all hooked up and ready to go. And I put about 1/4 of ATF and power steering fluid. You can use either one, it's fine. And then we're going to start the truck and we're going to keep an eye on everything. We're going to see if the level goes down, and when that level does go down, because it will, replace that power steering fluid and just keep doing that until it quiets down. It's going to make grinding and annoying noises as the air is being forced out of the system, is being purged out. And over the next couple of days, you're going to want to kind of check on that level and see if it's dropped any. Technically, you're supposed to jack up the front of the truck and with no load on it, and then turn the wheel left and right to lock a bunch of times. But I understand if you don't want to do that step, you can just kind of keep an eye on it and make sure it doesn't run dry, or else you will ruin your new pump and you don't want it to do that. So go ahead and make sure that always make sure that the power steering fluid is between the min and max lines on the reservoir itself. We can add some more here. I wonder if they quiet it down a little bit. There we go. I quieted it down quite a lot. All right, it was just a little low. I'll take it. So that is how to replace a power steering pump on your 2005 Ford F-150 or Expedition with that 5.4 liter V8. This is something that anybody with a free weekend day could do in their garage reasonably, and you're saving hundreds of dollars. I think a mechanic, I would probably charge you something like $700 to do this, kind of minimum with the pump included. And again, if you don't want to do the pulley step, that's totally fine. Just buy one that already has the pulley pre-installed. You don't need to do that. I just did it because that's the only kind that Motorcraft sold, and I wanted a Motorcraft pulley, so I was willing to do the extra work, but you don't have to. Thank you so very much for watching. If you found this video helpful or interesting at all, please consider becoming a member down below as a direct way to help the channel out. Other than that, a like, comment, and subscription help me out a whole bunch as well, and I really appreciate it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.